Hello everybody. So welcome back to my channel. My name's Emily Ennis and this is Woman of Valor. So I haven't been on in a while because a lot of things have happened in my life. I started my own business and I've been doing a cleaning company and I got my license. So a lot of changes have been going on and my life has been really busy. Just trying to get into a routine of being a full-time mother and working my own company. Anyway, so last week was the Feast of Tabernacles, otherwise known as Sukkot. And me and my family, we celebrate God's biblical feasts. We've come out of paganism and the pagan holidays, and so this is what we do now. And every year has been such an awesome and amazing learning experience. The first year, God showed me something this year, and I really want to just kind of explain it to you guys the best that I can. But every year has been a learning experience. The first year that I tried to celebrate God's feasts, I was actually so hyper-focused on trying to get like the Passover feast, the Seder dinner, right? And doing these Jewish traditions, not biblical. Remember, there's a difference between biblical and like Judaism and like Jewish traditions and all that stuff, okay? So anyway, trying to do this Seder dinner, and I was so stressed out about it and so like overwhelmed with where to start and how to get a hold of these special plates and how to do the special readings and what exactly I should put on the plate for everybody to be eating. And just, yeah, it was oh my gosh. Anyway, so what God showed me that year was that if I keep focusing on trying to get it perfect, that wasn't the point of his feasts. His feasts are for everybody, rich and poor, and everybody can observe them. And everybody who follows Yeshua should be observing them, right? His feasts point to Jesus. So, that's when God showed me, okay, no, you're missing the mark. You're completely missing the mark. So the next year, I didn't do the Seder dinner. I realized that is just traditions of man, and I had let go of traditions of man and paganism, so why would I replace it with another? So we just observed Passover the next time around, literally how it says in the Bible. We roasted a lamb with bitter herbs over fire, and we gathered together, a holy convocation. Everybody got together. We ate it in haste. Okay, like this, the instructions are they're pretty simple, right? And like what you do, the activities, the fellowship, the singing, and dancing or whatever, like the any activities that you do, that's up to you, right? But the point is gathering together, observing his feast, eating lamb, right? That's the point. Right? Remembering what happened in the Old Testament and realizing that it's a foreshadow of what is to come and what has already come, and to be there at God's appointments, observing, right? So anyway, that was what God showed me. So the next year that we celebrated, that's what we did. It was so simple, right? And it was so much easier and it was beautiful. We actually had a gathering of people. We had a really good time. We ate some lamb. We had fun. We visited together. We did activities about the Old Testament and the history of the Passover. And then we did, like, the activity that we did was we did communion, right? And we read the Last Supper. So then, as the years have went by, we have become better and better at celebrating these feasts as a family and making them our new family traditions, right? Our new family, like our tradition is now biblical, not what the world has given and tells us to do, but what God has given and tells us to do. And it's been very beautiful, and it's so rich in meaning, and it's just, everything has changed because of that. Anyway, so each year God seems to show me something new during one of his feasts, and a couple times now it's been, so this is the 5th year that we've celebrated, and a couple times it's been during the Feast of Sukkot. And I think that this is because that is one feast that has not been fulfilled, and it is very meaningful. It's different than the other ones. So when you're reading scripture, there's a verse that it is, and the word became flesh and tabernacled among the people. And this is scripture that I believe is pointing towards the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, being symbolic of Jesus' birth. So it is possibly Jesus' birthday is around that time, and it makes sense, the seasons, if you line them up, that Jesus would be born around that time. So that's one thing, right? So then the other thing was that what it resembled historically was that people of old, tabernacled together, gathered together, and dwelt with the Lord in the wilderness in booths, right? And they lived in these little booths, which is what God tells us to build, what people build during the Feast of Sukkot, right? During the Feast of Tabernacles, they build these booths and they dwell in them for the week festival, for the week harvest festival, right? And I don't know. So anyway, that's what the Old is pointing at, what the Old Testament is pointing at. It signifies, it's in remembrance of the Israelites dwelling in the wilderness in booths with the Spirit of the Lord, right? Remember that the Lord went before the Israelites. They dwelt with the Lord, and he protected them and showed them the way, right? And now what the New Testament meaning of the Feast of Sukkot is that eventually we are going to be dwelling. Right now we are in the wilderness, and yes, we have the Holy Spirit with us, dwelling with us, right? He dwells inside of us, and it's a foreshadowing of Jesus coming and returning. So he will most likely, when this feast is fulfilled, will be fulfilled through Jesus, obviously. All of the feasts are and have been, but it will be fulfilled through Jesus during his return. So that's really cool. And that's something that God showed me last time, right? And then each year, a big thing for me was my sukkah. That is the name for the booth that I build for my family to sleep in. So the first year so this is what God showed me. Okay, so the first year we got invited to a family's house out on an acreage, and one of the daughters, the eldest, she's into carpentry and building and all that stuff, and she built this beautiful large sukkah, aka dwelling space, for everybody that had came for a dinner and a feast, and for them to dwell in that week, right? And so they had invited a bunch of people over on the high Sabbath, and we read some scripture reading, and we slept in this amazing, spectacular sukkah. And it was like done up to the nines, okay? And had decorations and tables in it, and it was like the beds were up off the floor on pallets, and it was beautiful. And so then the next year, and in my mind all this time, I was like, okay, one day I'm gonna have that. So then the next year, when I celebrated, I was unable to do anything because I was living in my mother's basement for 6 months. Well, because we pretty much packed our entire lives up and moved here to where we live right now, the province that we're in. And so we were living for a short period of time in my mom's basement, which was, by the way, one of the hardest times of my life. Me and my husband, and we made it through that, and obviously God is so good. because he brought us to our home, and now we are now homeowners. So like literally 3 years ago, we were living in my mom's basement, and God led us to right where we are, and we are now homeowners. Okay. And in a miraculous way, fully paid off. Okay. And so then it was on. I was like, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to have that perfect sukkah that I saw that one time. And so each year, for 2 years in a row that we were here, it was this huge thing. I had all of my materials. I had all of the sheets to put up on the 4 walls. I had, you know, tables and beautiful little wood pieces and centerpieces and tablecloths and lights and like little bottle lights that I made, and you know, a little greenery, like actual greenery, like fake plants and eucalyptus and plants, and it total bohemian looking beautiful sukkah. And I will actually post a picture in here in this video. But anyway, so I did that, and I did it 2 years in a row. It was this huge thing, like this huge task, we prepared our house, cleaned up, did all our Sabbath prep, cleaned everything, and then we all built this sukkah together. Anyway, 3rd year, here we are. And I was going with that, right? And like, I'm so big on like, this is meant for rich and poor. All God's feasts are meant that it doesn't matter who you are, rich or poor, you observe them. And they're so simple and beautiful and rich and meaning. And all I was thinking about was having this perfect sukkah for my family to sleep in, and for it to look aesthetic and look good, right? And then this year came around, and I had that same thing in my mind. I was going to do that again. And I actually ended up having the most stressful time. Oh, and another thing is that I learned is that each year, okay, throughout all of this, there's always some sort of thing with the weather. Like, it's not easy. There's like, last year it rained the entire time. We had one nice night sleeping in the sukkah, and then it rained the entire time. The entire sukkah was flooded. We couldn't sleep in it. It was too cold for the kids to be outside without getting sick. Like, it was a mess, right? And then this year, same thing. We had a lot of bad weather. And then there was this one beautiful night where we slept in the sukkah. But anyway, I got left with my sister's 2 kids. And normally she celebrates with me each year. And this year she wasn't there. And I had both of her kids. And it was just a mess of stress and just chaos. And like, every ounce of peace felt like it was sucked out of me. And I was not happy. And it came down to time to set up the sukkah, and I had no help to do it, and I didn't have all the sheets to put on it. All my greenery was missing, all my pretty decorations, all my things, and it wasn't good. Like, wasn't like before. But then as I started finally building this sukkah with unmatching sheets, might I add, unmatching sheets. Normally they're perfectly white, and it was just whatever. And so I made this sukkah with scraps, and it was, you know, not perfect looking, but once it was done, it looked so perfect. And I didn't have any greenery and any fake plants to put on it, but that didn't matter because it was still perfect. And like, there wasn't a bunch of lights, and it wasn't all done up, and it was just like, I did plan out that we would sleep on pallets this time, so that we didn't, if it did rain, we would be able to like suffer through, and the water would go under us and not on us. But yeah, it was just one of those times, right? And it was still beautiful. And I learned, God taught me this time around that like, Sukkot isn't supposed to be this like aesthetically pleasing and beautiful, like perfect, well done up thing. His people didn't have decorations. They weren't setting up these beautiful fancy booths in the wilderness and like dining and having like this beautiful time. In fact, it was complete chaos, right? They had to leave before their bread was leavened, and they had to, like, you know, they had to flee for their lives, and they set up booths with probably all they could carry on their back, which probably wasn't very extravagant, right? And they probably didn't have like fancy meals, and like just it. Some of them were probably orphans and didn't even have family at all, right? So like, this is the thing, is like, God was teaching me. He humbled me greatly, and he taught me that the point of Sukkot isn't what I was aiming at. And perhaps that's why it's so hard for some people to be able to figure out how to even where to start and where to begin in observing his feasts. It's because of social media, maybe, like what we see on social media. I don't know, just like a lot of us are missing the mark, right? And if I would have hung a sheet over a branch and strapped it to the ground, that would have been good enough. If I sat there by myself, that would have been good enough. If I had, you know what I mean? These women that fled Egypt probably had children running all about, probably had children they had to carry on their backs. They probably had a really, really hard time getting their kids to behave and settle down and listen and follow instructions, and just, it was probably sheer chaos for them too, right? Beautiful, happy, amazing chaos. But like, even in the wilderness, it didn't matter how good it was, right? It didn't matter what God had done for them or given them or how he had saved them. It didn't matter that he parted the Red Sea for them. It didn't matter that he had freed them. It didn't matter that he had made water come out of a rock. It didn't matter what he had done. It didn't matter that he went before them, making a way, his way, right? They were still ungrateful. They were still upset, and they were still moody and cranky, and, you know, they had no faith. They all missed the mark. They were freaking out, being little brats, essentially being very spoiled little brats who were ungrateful. And that was a heavy theme throughout the first 5 books of the Bible, was God's mercy and his goodness, and these people spitting in his face constantly with their behavior. And nothing was good enough, no matter what he did. And that is where God knocked me down like 10 pegs during Sukkot this year. And I realized I was being just, some things don't ever change. I was being just like them, right? And I think that is a huge theme of the Bible as well, is to show us that some things have never changed. Some things don't change. And that is why the Bible is still completely, like the Old Testament, all of it, it's so relevant to our lives today. It is all a foreshadowing of us. Ooh, almost lost my phone there. It's all a foreshadowing, right? It's all pointing towards us right now. And the coolest thing is that the spring feasts have been fulfilled and the fall feasts have not been fulfilled. So we are in this time in our life where we are wandering in the wilderness, waiting to go into the promised land. Just like the Israelites were, right? They were wandering in that wilderness for 40 years, waiting to go to the promised land. And they had to have faith in God. And they had to have faith in the things to come, and the things that had happened, things of the past and the present and the future. And they had to trust in God for every little thing. He showed them that, like, he was the one that was going to provide the manna. He was the one that was going to provide the food. That there was nothing they could do on their own strength. He had to rip them, completely strip them down of everything so that they could realize that he was their source, right? He was the one. He's the one that gives life and takes it away. And he was their source and he was their only way, right? Come to think about it, it was actually, you know, it was completely, they had to rely on God fully. And this is us. This is totally us, right? Because we can't control the weather during any of God's feasts. We can't control the outcomes. We can't control anything. All we can control is being obedient to him and following him and just trusting in him that everything's going to go according to his plan, right? When we do that, when we walk in his ways. So that is definitely what God has kind of shown me throughout his feast days and throughout especially Sukkot, as it is a week celebration where you are essentially camping, right? But anyway, another thing too is that this year another thing that I did was, like, I knew it was going to be cold, so I built a sukkah out of our kitchen table for the kids to sleep in. So essentially I built a little cute little fort for them, right? And that's the thing, is like, it doesn't matter whether you build a fort inside your house and sleep in it for a week, whether you sleep outside in your yard, whether you go all out and you go on a camping trip in the wilderness. Whatever you do, it's what's your heart intention. What is your heart doing? What are you doing? Are you trying to honor God and follow him and be obedient to him, or are you just doing what you want to do? And right now we know that we're waiting in the wilderness, waiting for the fall feasts to be completed, to be fulfilled. And some things have just never changed, and that's why the Bible is showing us something. There's a bigger picture. When you're reading the Old Testament, you're not just reading stories. You're reading symbolic things that are prophetic to us right now. You're reading a perfect picture of us, people right now. So God really humbled me, and he showed me that it wasn't going to be this beautiful, miraculous celebration. It never will be. Give up. Stop it, daughters. Just stop. Give up already is pretty much what he showed me. You're going to do this my way, not your way, according to my plan, not your plan, because that is exactly what the Feast of Sukkot signifies, is these Israelites depending completely and solely on God to set them free from bondage, keep them safe in the wilderness while they dwelled in these in these booths. And that's the picture. God showed me the picture. He showed me what Sukkot truly is. So if your family has been thinking about celebrating these feasts and you just don't know how to do it and you don't want to do it wrong, believe me, there is no way you can do it wrong. And if you are doing it wrong, God will show you, like he showed me, the right way to do it. And he's not looking for perfect. He's not looking for well done up and aesthetically pleasing. He's not looking for anything. He's looking for your heart. He's looking to see what your intention of your heart is. Is your intention of your heart to observe his feasts and follow his ways and do as he has said to do? Or is your heart's intention your heart's intention? Is it just you know what I mean? Like, what is the intention of your heart? Do you want to celebrate God and just show up for his holy convocations, his appointed times, his appointments, right? Show up and be a part of them and meet with him. Or is your intention impure? Is your intention that your heart isn't with him, it's not for him, it doesn't want to do this, it has other plans, it has other things that are on the go that it wants to do? Because believe me, he knows. I hear a lot, if I celebrate pagan holidays, God knows my heart. You're right. He does know your heart, and he sees that your heart knows that it's wrong and knows that he said don't do it. And he sees the intentions behind your heart, and that regardless, you're still going to do it, and you're doing what you want to do, right? He can see that. He can see a person who maybe doesn't know how to do it perfectly. He didn't give us perfect instructions in the Bible. Like, he gave us his instructions, and believe me, there's not a lot to go off of. He just wants us to show up, rich or poor. It doesn't matter how we gather on that day. It doesn't matter how we celebrate. You could be sitting in a cardboard box with your family, splitting a little tiny bean, splitting a bean to eat, okay? But the point is that your heart's intention was in it. Your heart's intention came to his holy appointment and met with him right where you are, just as you are. You came as you are, right? That's what he's looking for. The point of Sukkot is that it doesn't matter who you are, rich or poor, that everybody lets go of the money and the things they have, their beautiful lives, their livelihoods, and that we come and we gather and we dwell in booths in the wilderness. This signifies so much. It is so rich in meaning. So that is what the Lord has shown me. So if you are somebody who really wants to observe God's feasts, but you just don't know how, and you don't want to make him mad, that's not. What's going to make him mad is you not doing it. What's not going to make him mad is how you do it. Because what did he say so many times? Like, let go of the traditions of man. It's not about, look at me. Like, for years I was trying to obtain this thing that somebody else had obtained and done. It was beautiful, and you know what I mean? Like, God, glory to that person, right? But like, or God bless that person. But that wasn't what I was going to obtain, and that's not what God was showing me through this. So I was trying to, obtain something that he wasn't going to allow, because that's not the point of his feasts. His feast is not about having some fancy meal and some crazy elaborate decorations. In fact, that's paganism. That's what I was heading at, right? He didn't want that, and he showed me that, and it was really beautiful. And I just wanted to share this with you guys. And yeah, for all those who delight in God's holy appointed times, keep going, keep trekking along. He will show you and lead you and guide you in exactly how to keep his times. And if you are on the fence, this is your sign. This video is literally your sign. Just go for it. Just do it. And yeah, that's all I really can say. It's a beautiful Sabbath, Saturday, Shabbat. I am enjoying my backyard, and I was really irritable and cranky and crotchety when I woke up this morning. And yeah, I came out here and turned on my worship music and started praying, and I decided to make this video, and I feel really good. It's a beautiful day. And I don't know why I was feeling the way I was feeling. There's no reason for it. So that is God's peace that surpasses all understanding. Hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful Sabbath, and that you get some rest in the Lord. And God bless you all. Shalom.